Chapter 5 Part A. The first thing I did, after we were left together alone, was to make a third attempt to get up from my seat on the sand. Mr. Franklin stopped me. "There is one advantage about this horrid place," he said, "we have got it all to ourselves. Stay where you are, Betteridge, I have something to say to you." While he was speaking, I was looking at him, and trying to see something of the boy I remembered, in the man before me. The man put me out. Look as I might, I could see no more of his boy's rosy cheeks than of his boy's trim little jacket. His complexion had got pale. His face, at the lower part, was covered, to my great surprise and disappointment, with a curly brown beard and mustachios. He had a lively touch-and-go way with him, very pleasant and engaging, I admit, but nothing to compare with his free and easy manners of other times. To make matters worse, he had promised to be tall, and had not kept his promise. He was neat, and slim, and well made, but he wasn't by an inch or two up to the middle height. In short, he baffled me altogether. The years that had passed had left nothing of his old self, except the bright, straightforward look in his eyes. There I found our nice boy again, and there I concluded to stop in my investigation. "Welcome back to the old place, Mr. Franklin," I said. "All the more welcome, sir, that you have come some hours before we expected you." "I have a reason for coming before you expected me," answered Mr. Franklin. "I suspect, Betteridge, that I have been followed and watched in London, for the last 3 or 4 days, and I have traveled by the morning instead of the afternoon train, because I wanted to give a certain dark-looking stranger the slip." Those words did more than surprise me. They brought back to my mind, in a flash, the 3 jugglers, and Penelope's notion that they meant some mischief to Mr. Franklin Blake. "Who's watching you, sir, and why?" I inquired. "Tell me about the 3 Indians you have had at the house today," says Mr. Franklin, without noticing my question. "It's just possible, Betteridge, that my stranger and your 3 jugglers may turn out to be pieces of the same puzzle." "How do you come to know about the jugglers, sir?" I asked, putting one question on the top of another, which was bad manners, I own. "But you don't expect much from poor human nature, so don't expect much from me." "I saw Penelope at the house," says Mr. Franklin, "and Penelope told me. Your daughter promised to be a pretty girl, Betteridge, and she has kept her promise. Penelope has got a small ear and a small foot." "Did the late Mrs. Betteridge possess those inestimable advantages?" "The late Mrs. Betteridge possessed a good many defects, sir," says I. "One of them, if you will pardon my mentioning it, was never keeping to the matter in hand. She was more like a fly than a woman, she couldn't settle on anything." "She would just have suited me," says Mr. Franklin. "I never settle on anything either. Betteridge, your edge is better than ever. Your daughter said as much, when I asked for particulars about the jugglers. Father will tell you, sir. He's a wonderful man for his age, and he expresses himself beautifully." Penelope's own words, blushing divinely. "Not even my respect for you prevented me from—" "Never mind. I knew her when she was a child, and she's none the worse for it. Let's be serious. What did the jugglers do?" "I was something dissatisfied with my daughter, not for letting Mr. Franklin kiss her. Mr. Franklin was welcome to that, but for forcing me to tell her foolish story at second hand. However, there was no help for it now but to mention the circumstances. Mr. Franklin's merriment all died away as I went on. He sat knitting his eyebrows, and twisting his beard. When I had done, he repeated after me 2 of the questions which the chief juggler had put to the boy, seemingly for the purpose of fixing them well in his mind. "Is it on the road to this house, and on no other, that the English gentleman will travel today?" "Has the English gentleman we got it about him? I suspect," says Mr. Franklin, pulling a little sealed paper parcel out of his pocket, "that it means this. And this, Betteridge, means my uncle Herncastle's famous diamond." "Good Lord, sir!" I broke out, "how do you come to be in charge of the wicked Colonel's diamond?" The wicked colonel's will has left his diamond as a birthday present to my cousin Rachel, says Mr. Franklin. And my father, as the wicked colonel's executor, has given it in charge to me to bring down here. If the sea, then oozing in smoothly over the shivering sand, had been changed into dry land before my own eyes, I doubt if I could have been more surprised than I was when Mr. Franklin spoke those words. The colonel's diamond left to Miss Rachel, says I, and your father, sir, the colonel's executor. Why, I would have laid any bet you like, Mr. Franklin, that your father wouldn't have touched the colonel with a pair of tongs. Strong language, Betteridge. What was there against the colonel? He belonged to your time, not to mine. Tell me what you know about him, and I'll tell you how my father came to be his executor, and more besides. I have made some discoveries in London about my uncle Herncastle and his diamond, which have rather an ugly look to my eyes, and I want you to confirm them. You called him the wicked colonel just now. Search your memory, my old friend, and tell me why. I saw he was in earnest, and I told him. Here follows the substance of what I said, written out entirely for your benefit. Pay attention to it, or you will be all abroad, when we get deeper into the story. Clear your mind of the children, or the dinner, or the new bonnet, or what not. Try if you can't forget politics, horses, prices in the city, and grievances at the club. I hope you won't take this freedom on my part amiss, it's only a way I have of appealing to the gentle reader. Lord, haven't I seen you with the greatest authors in your hands, and don't I know how ready your attention is to wander when it's a book that asks for it, instead of a person? I spoke, a little way back, of my lady's father, the old lord with the short temper and the long tongue. He had 5 children in all. 2 sons to begin with, then, after a long time, his wife broke out breeding again, and the 3 young ladies came briskly one after the other, as fast as the nature of things would permit, my mistress, as before mentioned, being the youngest and best of the 3. Of the 2 sons, the eldest, Arthur, inherited the title and estates. The second, the Honorable John, got a fine fortune left him by a relative, and went into the army. It's an ill bird, they say, that fouls its own nest. I look on the noble family of the Herncastles as being my nest, and I shall take it as a favor if I am not expected to enter into particulars on the subject of the Honorable John. He was, I honestly believe, one of the greatest blackguards that ever lived. I can hardly say more or less for him than that. He went into the army, beginning in the Guards. He had to leave the Guards before he was 22, never mind why. They are very strict in the army, and they were too strict for the Honorable John. He went out to India to see whether they were equally strict there, and to try a little active service. In the matter of bravery, to give him his due, he was a mixture of bulldog and gamecock, with a dash of the savage. He was at the taking of Seringapatam. Soon afterwards he changed into another regiment, and, in course of time, changed into a 3rd. In the 3rd he got his last step as lieutenant colonel, and, getting that, got also a sunstroke, and came home to England.